Let's welcome in Brian Geltzeiler, Sirius XM NBA Radio. Geltzy, how you doing, my man? What's up?
Great, guys. How we doing?
We're doing
All right.
We're doing well. NBA Finals Saturday night. Knicks win in 5. Just some overarching thoughts of yours after watching the finals.
The Knicks are a very unique and special team, a special group in the respect that they bought in from an unselfishness standpoint. And rarely do you see a team where you have, for the large majority of the last 2 seasons, everybody worried about touches and shots, that at the exact right moment decide to not worry about touches and shots. The discipline that they showed on both ends of the floor, I thought was tremendous. One of the hallmarks of this group, I think, when you look back, is going to be how they were able to attack a team's weakness and continue to attack it and never went away from it. And that speaks to the coach and the coaching staff, and that speaks obviously to the players. The other thing is this, guys, that's important about this Knicks group. They didn't play with their food. And listen, even last year's OKC team that won it all, they allowed that Indiana team to hang around for 7 games in a series. Knicks went 16-3 to win the NBA title. It's an incredible accomplishment. And when they had their foot on another team's throat, they stepped down and stepped down hard. And I think that's something that we don't see a lot in this era of NBA basketball, where a team has that level of killer instinct. I mean, killer instinct. And you can't credit this group enough. They did such a fantastic job. And listen, I've had my moments in the past where I've complained about Jalen Brunson's general level of ball dominance. You can't complain about that. And you certainly can't complain about that in Game 5, because they had no one else that could get anything, and it was the night of Jalen Brunson's career. And for him to, in a closeout game in the NBA Finals for a championship, to literally have the best game of his career, you can't ask much more out of the guy.
Wow, BG, I couldn't wait to have you on. I agree wholeheartedly, and this is why we like sports, right? Nobody, maybe some at the beginning of the year, thought the Knicks were going to do what they did, and they did it. I got to get this off. Coach Mitch Johnson for the San Antonio Spurs, and I just told Steiny, and we had a caller disagree with me. I didn't like that when Brunson was getting hot, and I don't think he was the most efficient, man, I would have sent a double team at him every time. And I felt like San Antonio let him get comfortable, dribble to air out the ball. They did it at times, sent 2, but they didn't commit to it. Do you think that's fair, or did you see that, or am I off?
So here's what I'll say, Darryl. I don't think it's fair criticism for the balance of the series, but I think it's fair criticism for Game 5. Because, listen, the Knicks had enough other players that could kill you, that to play Brunson straight up had some sense over the course of the series. However, once the second quarter of Game 5 came and the Spurs had the Knicks down a bunch, and Jalen Brunson had a fantastic second quarter and got that game. At one point, it was at 3. They went into the half with a 5-point margin. Once Brunson got hot like that in the second quarter and no one else really had it going, you had Towns with foul trouble. Anunoby certainly didn't look great. Bridges was okay, and he was fine. But again, if you're going to get beat at that point, let Bridges beat you. I thought it's very fair criticism for Game 5 that in an elimination game and Brunson's killing you like that, you just have to let someone else beat you, because no one else at that point had proven, in that game at least, that they were going to do anything to beat you. But there was a lot of stuff with Mitch Johnson that was very, very questionable. When you look at that last possession of Game 4, and my buddy Coach Nick Hauselman at B-Ball Breakdown on Twitter did a super breakdown of how disorganized the Spurs were. They didn't even realize what lineup the Knicks were going to come to the court with, which really wasn't rocket science. The Knicks were going to put their 5-out lineup with 4 of their starters and sham it in for Hart. That was the lineup you were going to get. They didn't realize how to match up with it, and they were so. The reason Wemby ended up on the ball was by coincidence, because somehow he ended up guarding Mikal Bridges, and they brought Bridges over as a screener. Wemby was never supposed to be 30 feet away from the basket. That kind of stuff with Mitch Johnson, that level of disorganization on his bench in those spots, I think is a major indictment of him. With all that said, the Spurs big picture, everything, and I think that's a really good thing at this time. Mitch Johnson's his second year as head coach. He's going to make mistakes. Mike Brown's been doing this over 20 years, and Mike Brown schooled him. There's no doubt. But when you look at the fact that Johnson's such a young coach, that their three best players are 22, 21, and 20. Everybody can grow together a little bit. They were not supposed to be there. The roster wasn't even built to be there yet. And they were able to surpass any expectation anybody have of who this basketball team could be this year, San Antonio. It was a wildly successful season for them. And as much as Johnson struggled in the finals, and Darryl, he did struggle in the finals, it's a little extreme, all the calls you're hearing. To fire him, they got to move on to a different coach. I'm not buying that at all.
Brian Geltzeiler joining us on 95.7 The Game, Sirius XM NBA Radio. You talked earlier about, the Knicks developed some chemistry and they got more unselfish. When did you notice that turnaround start?
Well, so two things happened with the Knicks that I think were seminal moments for them regarding the unselfishness. Number one was over the last month of the season, Mike Brown made a concerted effort to put Brunson and Towns in more two-man actions. And the large majority of those that had happened up till then, not only this season but last season, resulted in Jalen Brunson shots. I mean, there was some kind of number from last season, like in the Brunson Towns pick and rolls, 80% of the time it ended in a Brunson shot, which is crazy. Towns is barely touching the ball in those spots. Brown tried to hammer that in the last month of the season with a focus on the ball moving out of Brunson's hands, even if it came back to get it back to him on some kind of dribble handoff action. And not only when that started to happen and started to look better, the two of them developed a little bit of a kinship and got closer because it was never a bad relationship. But Brunson has his boys. He's got Hart. He's got Bridges. It was never a wonderful relationship. They were able to kind of connect on a personal level and found out they maybe liked each other a little more than I thought. And so when you ended up coming into the Atlanta series down 2-1, and Karl Towns, to my understanding, presented lead assistant Chris Gent with a plan on how they could do things running offense through him at the elbow and some off-ball action they could do to get Brunson open, find Anunoby on some backdoor plays, Bridges in the spots that he likes. And Gent was so impressed, he brought it to Mike Brown. Mike Brown sat down with the two of them and turned around and said, this is what we are doing. But the thing is, once Brown said, this is what we are doing, everybody on that staff brought in. Mike Brown did a tremendous job. Keep in mind, Gent was the only guy in his coaching staff, all right, that he brought in on his own. Everybody else were holdovers. Yet Mike was able to have a collaborative enough approach that everybody trusted him. And the one that actually gave pushback on running all that offense through Towns early on was Jalen Brunson. If you remember, there was a little bit of an animated conversation in Game 4 of the Atlanta series on the sidelines between Jalen and his father. And to my understanding, that conversation was Rick telling Jalen, we're going to do it this way. This is what the coach said. This is how it goes. And what happened was Brunson played more off the ball and found he had space, he had energy, and it worked really well for him. Keep this in mind, guys. Jalen Brunson made his bones in this league as an off-ball player next to Luka Doncic. He is as good an off-ball player there is this side of Steph Curry. He is terrific off the ball, and so much of doing that left him fresh for late in games. So that unselfishness kind of came from the top down in terms of Mike Brown getting everybody to trust him. And once everybody trusted Mike, they trusted each other, and it was really unique in how all of this came together. So that's kind of, to my knowledge, where all of this got going. But it came down to the fact of Brunson's willingness to not say, hey, I don't have to do this on my own all the time, because when I do have to do it on my own, it'll be easier. Hence what we saw in Game 5.
Oh, good stuff. BG, I got to ask you this, and you tell me if it's a little too strong. I'm happy for Cat. I've always liked his game, but I felt like he showed the world, I could be part of a championship team. That happened. And I don't want to use mad. I'm not his dad, but I'm disappointed in De'Aaron Fox. He was brought in to be the OG vet. He still had some game, relatively young, and I just felt like at every turn, BG, he let his team down, and we saw what it was. He just looked shook. And on top of that, I feel like he's in front of Dylan Harper. He's in the way. To say De'Aaron Fox moving forward, BG, is an issue for the Spurs and Harper's growth, how would you answer that?
First of all, you think San Antonio wants that 4-year, $240 million extension back on him right now? Like, I mean, and I don't think disappointed is too harsh for this one reason. He was brought there to enhance Victor Wembanyama, to be Victor Wembanyama's playing partner, and as a point guard to get the most out of that player that he could. There were enormous stretches of time in this series where the Spurs forgot they even had Victor Wembanyama on their team. And And to me, that's 100% on De'Aaron Fox. And yes, he's standing there in Dylan Harper's way. And certainly down the stretch of game 4, where you only played Dylan Harper 4 minutes in the fourth quarter of game 4. I don't, and Harper's one of the 2 guys that could guard Brunson 94 feet. I didn't understand it, but part of it was the fact that Fox was supposed to be the veteran guy, and they leaned into that. But even when Fox didn't have it going in game 5, there was no deference to Wemby. There was no, geez, I need to get guys involved. And the reason I don't think disappointing is too strong is because when that happened and he wasn't shooting well towards the end of the OKC series, if you look at game 6 in the OKC series, he had 9 assists. He found guys when shots weren't falling for him. Why not in this series? Was he reading everything that happened regarding his press clippings? He made an absolutely boneheaded play down the end of game 4 and not dribbling the ball out, and you expect your point guard to be a whole lot more cerebral than that. And so I agree. And listen, I thought Kevin O'Connor of Yahoo Sports made a great point yesterday. I actually retweeted it. Like, they would like to trade Fox sooner rather than later. I don't think that's a secret. I think that they understand that they need that space cleared for Dylan Harper to be a 35-minute-a-game player. What are they getting for Fox with this contract extension kicking in? Is anybody even going to want him? I mean, somebody might take a shot on him, but all of a sudden you traded a couple first-round picks for him. You're not getting value back for him. He really devalued himself badly in the playoffs, and some of it I feel for the team and the player a little bit. He was playing with a high ankle sprain, which would have knocked him out 2 to 3 weeks in the regular season, and he gutted and pushed his way through it. But my problem with him is the mistakes were a whole lot less athletic and a whole lot more mental. And I worry if that's something that gets cleared up here in the future for them.
Yeah, Brian Geltzeiler joining us on 95.7 The Game, Sirius XM NBA Radio. I know Wemby's gonna go get stronger. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But to my way of thinking, the first thing he needs to do is develop some kind of signature shot. A shot that he knows he can go to when he needs to. What do you think that shot would be?
He had a move on Towns early in the series where he got into the paint. He got a pass in the paint, and he did a one dribble, almost a dream shake type of thing where he faked to go right and then did a little step into this little baby lefty layup / hook. That's the move. It's the one-step post move, and I think that move is there. I think Matty actually has it. I just don't think they use it, and I think he has to work on it and tailor it a little bit. Listen, he's never going to be a traditional post player, but I also think that he needs to be used. Think about this, guys. He needs to be used by the Spurs in the same way Denver uses Jokic and in the way the Knicks use Towns in this series. I also will tell you this. You're right about building strength. Karl Towns guarded him as well as anybody could possibly guard him in this series. He was outstanding on the defensive end of the floor. He bodied him up. And so much of what I think Wemby needs to look at is, yes, you have to develop the signature shot, but he's going to have to get stronger, because I will tell you this, Towns completely and entirely knocked him around and just was so physical with him. I was really in awe of it, quite frankly. He really, what he did with Wembenyama, I did not think necessarily was possible. But he did a super job. And listen, if you remember the NBA Cup final, guys, Mitchell Robinson guarded Wemby and did a very good job on him. Towns was so much better than Wemby. He was so much better than Mitchell Robinson did in that particular game.
BG, let me ask you this, because my partner always reminds me when Denver won their chip, I was like, oh, watch out, a dynasty. Boston, the same thing. OKC still can get there, and they got, they were hurt. But when you look at this Knicks team, I just love them because they got a little bit of everything. How do you, what chances do you get? And I know we got free agency and a draft to get back next year in the East with Giannis possibly on the move.
Listen, it's, guys, sometimes you catch lightning in a bottle for a short amount of time, and I felt very strongly about this as well. I feel like this was the Knicks' chance. And not to say they can't come back and be tougher and repeat, but there's some major financial stuff they got to deal with. Towns is eligible for an extension. I don't know how they can turn around and give it to him right now with what it's going to do to them financially. This was the last year of Mitchell Robinson's deal. I don't know, They're going to have to go into the second hit. And listen, I think you do. I think you pay whatever money you have to pay to keep this group together until you get to the end here with this group and run this thing out. I don't think you do what Dallas did after 2011, which is say, okay, we're not going to go into the tax. We're going to break this group apart and try to stay more nimble. I don't think that's the smart move here. I lean into this group kind of the way the Celtics did in 24 going into 25. Pay them all. Pay the tax, and if you find that it's not working, then you got to start to sell some pieces off and figure out how to get creative. But I think for the Knicks, there's no reason not to bring the same group back. Listen, where Giannis gets dealt to can change the entire calculus of what happens in the Eastern Conference. Let's get away from the fact that it's just all about the fact that the Western Conference is the varsity and the East is the JV. That was just proven to be completely and entirely faulty. Sam Mitchell and I had Jay Billis on our show on Saturday, and he told a great story about Coach K. That when he was playing for Coach K, they were in the NCAA tournament, and the other side of the bracket was stacked. And Coach K showed him the 32 teams on the other side of the bracket and said, guys, I don't want you to worry about that because remember, to win it all, we only got to beat one of them. And I thought that was a very simple way to tell it about where the East and the West are. So with where the East is right now with the Knicks, run this thing back. Take it as far as you can take it. Listen, do I think they win again? No. It's been 8 different winners in 8 different years. And the Knicks were blessed with a whole lot of health. OG Anunoby got himself hurt early in the playoffs. And what happened? 2 8-day rests because they didn't play with their food ended up benefiting them, getting him to be a very, very healthy player. So from that standpoint, I think for the Knicks, you keep this thing together the best you can. You're going to struggle a little bit. They're not going to be able to bring back Landry Shamet. They're going to have to figure something out in the bench. They have a first-round draft pick this year. I think they have to go and get themselves a 23, 24-year-old guy that can go into the rotation in that first-round pick. Don't start with developmental guys taking an 18 or 19-year-old. You're a win-now team. Draft as a win-now team. Do I think they win it again? I don't. But by the same token, it's going to be an awful lot of fun watching them try to defend this title and run it back.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I'm thinking about it this way, Geltzy, is Denver won it 3 years ago, and we started talking about how they had a run in them. Then it was Boston, and we thought they were going to be the next team. OKC then last year. And now I'm looking at the Knicks, and I'm thinking, how come nobody's saying, could this be a Knicks run? Like every major player's in their prime right now.
And it could be a Knicks run, but it's not going to be a Knicks dynasty because I just don't know that we have a team in the league that can be a dynasty right now. I think the system has changed. I think this new CBA makes it really difficult for any team to be a dynasty. And I thought maybe we would get a 3 to 4 year run out of the Celtics with that, with the Porzingis and Holiday and Horford group and what happened there. It was a 2-year run because in the end, the Tatum injury changed everything. And I go back to what I just said to you guys. The Knicks were blessed this year with health, and it's a lucky thing. Everybody stayed healthy throughout with the injuries they had. They were able to kind of shrug off. Mitchell Robinson, let's face it, he's not shooting free throws well anyway with a good thumb. Certainly didn't worry about it having a bad thumb, or a bad pinky. So you have that issue there. Like, it's just the league's not designed for these dynasties anymore. With all that said, with the Knicks, you run this thing back and do whatever you can do because this group found something with each other. The other thing, which is interesting, and Pat Riley wrote about this in his book, which is the disease of me. How many guys want to change their role next year because of the role they had in the team winning? And everybody kind of looks at a team that won and thinks they're better than they are and wants it to translate to more and more and more. How does that jump in on the Knicks next year? Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But these are all things to watch with the Knicks. But again, I'm not sniffing dynasty here. Maybe a 3 or 4 year run deep into the playoffs, conference finals again, something like that. But it's hard to sniff any level of a dynasty here with the way this second apron CBA is set up.
Hey, BG, I know you're busy, but I got to squeeze this one. Anything to you on the BG computer about LeBron possibly coming to Golden State? Because we're like, I don't think he's leaving L.A.
I'm not sure he's leaving L.A., but if he does leave L.A., Darryl, it's the only place he's going. Really, it is. And it's funny. Bill Simmons has been leaning into this Expendables theory that the Warriors find a way to move off Jimmy Butler's expiring deal and bring in an Anthony Davis and then sign LeBron and go with that group with Curry and Draymond and LeBron and Anthony Davis and go with a bunch of old guys and see what happens. I don't know what it does, but it could be a lot of fun. But I do think one thing I will say is, I don't know that LeBron leaves L.A., and that doesn't necessarily mean he's back with the Lakers. I think LeBron to the Clippers is a little more alive than people are thinking, because if Kawhi stays there with Garland, they have a number 5 overall pick in this draft. That could be a pretty good situation for him, because he's not going back to Cleveland. He's not leaving California. And then the Warriors situation is he's not coming. His base of operations, his family. LeBron's too old to leave California right now. This is where his life is. So it's just a question of where he goes. But I will say this about the Warriors. I think that Butler expiring deal and some future assets are live. I think if they could bring something else in for Jimmy, I think, and bring Porzingis back, I think this could be an interesting situation where they try to see if they could run this thing back one last time, maybe get a younger type of star and throw in some draft picks with the Butler salary. One thing I'll tell you, as long as Steph Curry is there, there's no reason to punt on this thing and go full-blown rebuild. There just isn't. You want to see if you can take this thing absolutely to the end. Steve Kerr didn't come back to coach this year, and maybe next year too, because they're going to engage in some kind of future rebuild. That's just not, to me, going to be on their radar. So I think Warrior fans, strap in a little bit. I think it's going to be an interesting offseason.